Hello everyone, so today I'm going to be planning with I'm trying to get it, hold on, give me a second. With my bibliophile kit, and it is maybe one of my favorites, and I think growth is also one of my favorites. But I also say that about every single kit that I just recently released. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, this is one of our newer kits. And I'm just really excited and happy about it and the way that it came out. It is all browns, creams, olives. So it's just right up my alley right now. Excuse me. Sorry. What is that shadow? Is it that? Okay. Okay, so this is the second page. This is the third page. And then we have the florals, the doilies, and the large florals. I don't know why I said it like that. I did recently just do my growth kit. This is a growth kit, and I just am obsessed with the way that this came out. I just think it's so pretty. And I think I got my lighting just right to where like it shows the foil really well. Hopefully I can edit it to be like a little bit brighter because my camera is showing it like a little bit more darker than what I would want it to. But yeah, I used a couple of things. Most of them are from our shop, which you can still pick up these butterflies and petals, and the coffee stains. I was actually thinking about making some that were even smaller than the ones that are here because I was like craving for smaller ones, and I didn't realize it until I was planning that I just think like one little smaller one right here would be really nice, or something like that, just to kind of like fill in some space. But yeah, these are brand new. These had came out last week. This kit had came out last week as well. And then the date covers, you can grab them off of our shop too. We use these little plaid grid thingies from Panda Bird Designs, and then I used this little background one from Sadies Stickers, and then this little guy too from Sadies Stickers. So yeah, most of it was from the kit, and I think I did pretty well. I did notice that I was running out of boxes, so after I played with this kit, I had told myself, you gotta come up with a little bit more bibs. So we're adding a fourth sheet to our kit. So that is what's going to be happening. And I know a lot of people have been asking for Murder in a Plan to come back, so that is what we're doing today. I'm gonna do a voiceover from here on out, and this will all be sped up from this point on. And I hope you enjoy. Well, hello there. It is voiceover Jessica, and I am back for a plan and a murder. And it's been, oh God, I don't even want to think about how long it's been. But I'm not even going to say that this is going to be a consistent thing because these do take a long time. But I will be I don't even want to say that I'll be consistently uploading either because I don't want to make promises that I cannot keep. But I'm hoping that I will be able to do more plan with me's, some vlogs maybe. But yeah, now that life has kind of like chilled out a bit, a small bit, it's still chaotic. But yeah, now that Sadies Stickers has been doing our fulfillment, it has been smooth sailing so far, business-wise. So I'm really excited about that. And today we're going to be doing a voiceover so that you can watch me do my plan with me that I'm already doing my base for. Wow. But we're going to be talking about Philip Markoff, and he is known as the Craigslist Killer. How I found this man is, again, a Lifetime movie. I had like a slight addiction to Lifetime movies when I was younger. This was when they were really popping off. They had terrible actors and actresses doing really great movies somehow. It's kind of like a Hallmark movie. Like, you know, you kind of know that it's going to be terrible acting, but they just fill like a really good void in your soul that you just kind of need done. It doesn't make sense, but it does at the same time. But yeah, I watched this movie years and years ago, and every so often I still think about this guy and what he did and the double life he was living, and it still messes with me to this day. Mark had grew up in a small town in New York, and he was kind of like the odd one out most of his childhood because he was really, really tall. He was really pale, blonde hair, blue eyes. Like, for some reason, he just didn't fit in, but he actually excelled really well academically, and then later on, he started to join like sports and stuff, and then started like making friends and things like that. His mom was a single mother, I believe. I'm not 100% on that. Most of this is coming from memory and then just like a website that I have pulled up, by the way. It may not be like 100% true based off of the things that are coming off of my brain, but I'm doing my best. I didn't want to full on write a script because that takes me like an hour or two, and I didn't really feel like doing that. I really wanted to get this video up because I think about this case like all the time, so I think I can do pretty well. But his mom actually worked at a casino, and he was just fascinated by gambling. Like, he just loved it. And it kind of got him in a bit of trouble. Like, his mom would bring him to work because, you know, like, he's a kid. She didn't want to leave him there by himself. So she would kind of stick him in, like, the cafes or whatever. And he would hide his backpack and stuff, and then he would, like, go and walk around the casino, which illegally I don't even think that you're allowed to do. Maybe, since he's underage. But yeah, he just, once he hit that certain age, he was obsessed with poker. So because he did well academically, he actually ended up going to State University of New York's Albany campus to study pre-med, to become a doctor, and he really enjoyed staying up all night with his friends and had a really big reputation of being a serious player who did not take losing very lightly. Like, he is a person that he better have won if not things were gonna get crack-a-lackin'. But in 2005, Markoff and Megan McAllister, which is a girl that he kind of like saw when he was volunteering at one of the hospitals, they actually hit it off really, really well. And both were students at that university. I don't want to say that all over again because it was a mouthful. And they became college sweethearts. They ended up moving in together. They got engaged. He actually ended up graduating with his pre-med degree in biology within 3 years and got accepted into Boston University School of Medicine. And McAllister also had planned to attend medical school because she wasn't accepted by the school she wanted to attend. They had coupled up and they had went to Boston together, but Megan decided to put her plans on hold. In 2008, they got engaged. They set their wedding date for August 14th, 2009. This has like a really like odd reason as to why it was so specific and why people like had like a big purpose on it. But because he was in like pre-med and having an addiction to gambling and poker, he ended up racking up like about $130,000 in debt between the two. And so he started to, I don't know if like stress took over in his brain or what ended up happening for him, that I don't know if he just kind of snapped. And the reason I say snapped is because he had took like a full year before he had actually went out and did anything. And by a full year, I mean he was surfing Craigslist. He had made like profiles to meet with people later on. But he would post very explicit photos of himself, and he had identified himself as a transvestite, and he was looking at people that were trans, and it was just, I don't understand how that jump had happened from him being like in a really good relationship, because she was, when she had to interview, like not interviews because she didn't really do interviews, but from what I had heard about her, she was like an incredibly sweet small town girl. Like it was just it was just very night and day. So he was basically living two lives, like where he was in real life, he was living this life where he was incredibly happy with this woman. And in another life, he was posting explicit photos. He was sending eggplant pictures. He was posing as a transvestite. He was dressing in women's clothing. And it was all fun and games until he started to exchange emails with people, but the first couple of people were not meeting up with him face to face. And then he started to do personal ads where he was posing as a female and searching for others who identified as transvestites, and discussions of like sexual nature was happening. And he wanted to meet up with them again, and then again nobody wanted to actually go through with that. Until one day, he was looking at that time, I remember this too because it was a very new thing. Like Craigslist was becoming a very new thing. It was basically like the hood version of Facebook Marketplace. Like, let's be honest. Like even, I don't even know. I haven't looked at Craigslist in a really long time. But when this started to happen, I was like looking up Craigslist, and I would personally like try to find dogs. Like I just wanted a free dog. But even then, the website would be kind of sketchy, where it was just like very minimal. It just had columns upon columns of like different kinds of things that you were looking for, whether it be like home decor or dogs or just like jobs, random stuff. And escorts was actually on there. And I remember because like it was just like very out there. Like high school boys would definitely talk about this. Was happening in my, like when I was in high school. And like high school boys would be talking about like, oh yeah, like you can meet girls and da da da. And I'm just like, you have no idea what's out there. Hint, Craigslist killer. So he started to book escorts and they were offering like quote unquote private massages for a fee. And he was confident that because they were escorts, these women wouldn't come up and say something if he were to do something to them. So he had met up a person. Her name was Trisha Leffler. And she was a 29-year-old, and she was a personal masseuse and agreed to meet with him at a Westin hotel in Boston. And as soon as they met in the hotel, she was like, like women probably have like procedures that they do for themselves. And what she had did is that she met him outside of the hotel, and she would kind of like look at them and get a vibe from them. And if she just didn't feel comfortable, she didn't let them in. But because he just looked like a typical white, blonde haired, tall, blue eyes man, she was like, oh, well, this guy just probably just needs some feeling and some touching. And she let him into the hotel room. And immediately, whenever he got into the hotel room, he had held her at gunpoint, tied her up, gagged her, and robbed everything. He had ended up taking like 2 of her panties, which comes into play way later. He had took 2 of her panties. He had took her credit cards. He had took some cash. But because both of them didn't use their real names to make the appointment, there was no way that she could identify him. And whenever this whole thing was happening, he had ended up breaking her cell phone, I believe. He had tied her mouth, like he had gagged her, and then he had duct taped her mouth as well. And he ended up cutting the cords to the phones in the hotel room. So there was no way for her to contact anybody like right off the bat. So he had time to escape. And so like right after he had left, she had said that she had waited like about a couple of minutes before she had got up. She was still bound and gagged and everything, and she had went to the neighbor hotel, and that's when she had told him that actually no, she had said that he was so bad at tying her up that she easily had broke out of the ties from her hands, and that's how she was able to get out. And she had went to the neighbor, and she had said, I was just robbed and I was held at gunpoint. Can you please call 911? So she had called the cops immediately when he had thought, there's no way, like, they're doing things that are illegal. Why would they? And when the police had got there, they took her case like incredibly seriously. And I know that's really crappy for me to say, but sometimes things happen to women and men are kind of like, okay, like police officers are kind of like, okay, well, you kind of put yourself in this situation kind of thing. But I'm so happy that they didn't do that to her, and they listened to her, even though she had no information on this man. And she had said that, like, immediately they started to grab footage from the hotel to kind of, like, speculate who it is. And when they had saw him coming out of the room, he was very, like, nonchalant. Like, nothing had just happened. He didn't do anything. And because he looked just like a basic man, they were kind of floored. Like, they were kind of like, if we had no video evidence, like, there was no way that we were going to, catch him. But because he had touched the cell phone and touched the duct tape, they actually got some fingerprints off of him. But because Philip is a goody two-shoes on a day-to-day life, there was no way for them to see who he was because he had no record. Like, if the only way that DNA testing actually works is if you're already a registered person. Like, if they have your fingerprints some way, somehow, that's how they're going to figure out who you are. They had nothing on Philip, like, at all. So 4 days go by, and he meets another person. Please tell me why this man decided to go back to the exact same hotel, meet another private masseuse, to do the exact same thing that he did to Trisha. Please tell me. Like, make it make sense. Like, at least, like, he just was not mentally a good robber, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. So he ends up meeting Julissa, and Julissa was actually really close friends with another person that she was an escort as well, and they would keep tabs with each other. And so, like, her friend would know when the appointment would start, and she knew also when it would end, and she would text Julissa and be like, hey, everything okay? And when she heard nothing back, she started to get really worried. But I feel like because of the work that they do, she didn't really say much. Like, she was just hoping for the best. But what ended up happening is that Julissa and Philip end up meeting. Again, she sees Philip in the lobby, and she kind of get the vibes. And again, he's just a basic white man. She ends up trusting him, going up to the room, and immediately, again, he ends up doing the same thing. But the thing is that she is a Latina. Okay? Latinas, when we're like in the middle of our lives being taken from us, we're going to fight back. Okay? Like, we're gonna go full throttle on you. And if we win, good for us. If we don't, we went out fighting. Okay? She had tore his ass up. Okay? She had what's it called? She had tons of his DNA under her fingernails. She had cuts and stuff from when she was fighting him. She had put him through it, and he panicked and ended up shooting her 3 times. So now he is a murderer. Okay, he is no longer just a robber. He's a murderer. And because there were gunshots involved, like, obviously he's on a bigger scale now. Like, cops are really trying to find him. And Trisha was actually a really big help to this, because she ended up staying and she ended up getting a lot of information to the cops after all of this started to go down. And they had gave her photos, and she had said, like, immediately after the murder, she knew that, like, things were really gung-ho at this point and they needed her. She's from out of state, and that's why I'm saying, like, she ended up staying, which is, like, a really good thing. She ended up staying. She ended up identifying him through a photo, which then the cops were really confused at that point, because they were like, why is a man that has his whole entire life set up for him, he's a pre-med student, he's an attending, and he's throwing his entire life away? Why? Like, why is this happening? So because they have an identification, they're now able to go through, see his things, and they find out where he lives. They find out just about everything, and they start to do the whole stalking situation, you know, like where they're following you, they're getting your DNA, and they ended up matching him to Trisha and Julissa. So now he's kind of like, okay, well, you know, whatever. Again, like, the footage is kind of insane, because this is like the footage that ends up going viral, where he's wearing that New York ball cap on, and he has like that white button up with some jeans. And when he ends up leaving the room, it was like nothing had happened. Like, again, he was very nonchalant, didn't care about anything. Like, he had just ended up murdering a woman, robbed her, and walked out like, okay, on to the next. What am I going to do? You know what he ended up doing? He ended up going to like a Target, did some grocery shopping with his then fiance, and he ended up buying a new ball cap, which he ends up wearing to the next appointment. One more thing to say about Julissa before I move on to the next victim. But the thing is that about Julissa, she ended up getting shot 3 times at close gunpoint, and she still didn't pass away immediately upon impact, which was a miracle within itself. They ended up transferring her from the hotel to a hospital, and guess what? It is the hospital that he was doing his attending at. Excuse me? The irony in that is beyond me. But he ends up going to meet, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. He ends up going to meet another person off of again, Craigslist ad. But the thing that he didn't know about this lady, her name is Cynthia Milton. What she didn't know about this is that this was a couple that they were doing this together. So the woman, Cynthia, she was a lap dancer, and she was advertising lap dances. And you can get like other women to get involved, or it could just be her, and he had ordered for just her. But what he didn't know is that it was a husband and a wife, and when she would do the lap dances, he would go with her, but he would stay in the lobby, so if anything were to happen, like, he was there immediately. So the husband would send her text messages during the lap dances, I guess, and he had did the same thing that he did to all the other victims, where he tied them up, gagged them, all this stuff. And my gosh, I can't believe this man. Like, I don't understand. The husband ended up calling the cell phone because the wife hadn't answered any of the text messages. So he ended up calling the cell phone, and then Philip is like, who is that? Like, who's calling you? And obviously the lady can't answer because she's gagged and bounded. And so she's like, her eyes are getting really wide, which are telling him, oh shit, like, I need to work faster. So he was like, I don't want to kill you. Just give me your money. Tell me where the money is. So she's like telling him where the money is. He gets the money. And as he's leaving, the husband is outside the hotel room. Like, he was just about to like beep him in. He ends up seeing his wife, and he darts straight for the wife. He ends up pushing Philip, and Philip ends up fleeing away again. Right? Like, this is freaking crazy. Like, this man, if the husband ended up having a gun, like, that would have been it for him. But he didn't. So Philip ends up going away, right? Also, I want to tell you that this all happens within a week span, right? Like, these 3 victims all happened within a week span, and this ended up happening not because, but while his fiance was gone with the family, on a family vacation. Can you believe that? Like, this man got like a week of freedom from his fiance and was like, I'm gonna go off and do this stuff. So yeah, he was just meeting women and terrorizing them, murdering them, and causing all of this drama all within a week. So all of these news things start to come out about, because this is now the 3rd time, people are getting scared. This is also the same week that the Boston Marathon is happening, where people are having to stay in hotels. People are freaking scared out of their minds, and cops are like, we gotta find this man ASAP. So because they have all his information, they had noticed his wife, or not his wife, his fiance and him packing their bags, and he was like she had came home, and he was like, honey, like, I really want to spend like a getaway with you, right? Like, okay. And she's like, yeah, sure, let's go. They were planning on going to Rhode Island, and because cops were following them, they end up stopping him in the middle of their road trip from Boston to Rhode Island, and Like, he had no questions. Like, he already knew. This man knew. And the wife, well, not the wife, I keep calling her the wife, but the fiance is like, what's going on? What's happening? He's staying dead ass silent. Like, he's not saying a word at all whatsoever. They end up arresting him. They end up interrogating him. And he's like, I'm not talking until I have a lawyer. I'm not talking until I have a lawyer. And so they're like, okay, well then call a lawyer. And he's like, I can't afford one. And they're like, okay, well, you have to talk unless you wait for like one that, like, the ones that are appointed to you aren't appointed to you until you get to court. So like, you either get a lawyer now, or you wait until you get one that's free, that are like from other companies that, like, I don't know what they're called, but it starts with an A. I know that. um I know it's not an alimony, and I know it's not an alibi, but it's something with an A. Suits should be ingrained in my head, but it's not for some reason. But it starts with an A, where like lawyers will take special cases and they'll do them for free. And he was like, well, I don't know any lawyers and I don't know any companies. And they're kind of like, okay, well then start talking. So he ends up just basically just talking and just saying, I don't know. 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 And over. And they're kind of like just going in a circle. And they're kind of like, well, you can either talk and tell us what's going on, or we can just put you in jail because we have enough evidence at this point. Like, we have your DNA. We have everything that we need to put you in jail. So he didn't even get to leave. Like, they had told him, like, you're not arrested right now. Like, you're not going to jail. But they had enough on him that they could actually put him in jail. So they didn't even give him a chance to leave. And so the fiance is like freaking out because it's like 3.5 months before their wedding, and all of this new stuff is coming up all over the place. And people are now like, I know people probably still use the Knot or whatever, but she had like a whole Knot website with their wedding date and their photo, which was like blasted all over the news media. And she was standing by her man. Like, she was calling news station after news station, being like, he would never hurt anyone. I don't understand how you think that it's him. Like, he has his whole life ahead of him. We're getting married in 3.5 months. Like, she was going in on all these news stations, radio stations, whoever was covering this case, without actually knowing what he did. And when police officers had finally went to the apartment, they ended up finding the first victim's 2 panties in a box spring. In their box spring, they ended up finding the gun that he ended up shooting the girl with, Julissa. Which, like, how dumb are you to keep that regardless? Like, like any other person would be like, oh, I gotta get rid of this. Like, I need to throw it in the lake or something. No. You know what he decided to do? He decided to cut the pages in the center of a Grey's Anatomy book that you use for studying, and he stuck the gun in the middle of it. I'll show you a picture right now. But it's just kind of like, this man had no sense of, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what he was doing. But he really thought that he would be able to get away with this. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, why you would do this all within a week. And it just makes me angry, right? And here is why I'm angry. They end up putting him in jail. He's waiting for a trial. Julissa's family is like really pissed off, obviously, because she's the only, like, not because she's the only one that ended up passing away, but because she was getting her life together. She was, I believe she was either an alcoholic or she was doing drugs. She was completely sober when she had passed away. She was going to school, I believe, to be a nurse. She was just trying to get her life together. Like, just like any other person that's in their 20s, just trying to get their lives together. And she unfortunately ended up passing away. And a lot of people, like a lot of news stations, were putting up like the photos where she's like pouting and she's like being sexy for the camera until it started getting closer and closer to the trial that the mom ended up putting a photo of her that she just looked so sweet, where it really humanized her rather than just being like she was an escort. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is more to a person than what the bad things that they had done in their lives. And it really humanized her to the news media that this was a person, this was a loved one, and I feel like it really shook everyone to its core whenever they had released that photo. And a couple of months in, like, of waiting, I guess, as more and more evidence started to come in from the apartment, from like the crime scenes, and as the fiance's watching all of this unfold, poor Allison, as she was watching all of this unfold, she ended up meeting him at the jail. She ended up leaving the ring and breaking off the engagement, obviously. Very dramatically, he had decided, I'm smart. I don't have to do this anymore. He ended up getting a razor blade. Trigger warning. He ended up getting a razor blade and ended up specifically cutting in the areas that were directly to the arteries. So he knew exactly what he was doing. And he had wrote on the wall Allison's name and then the nickname that he had for her in his blood. And what he ended up doing is he had covered up his feet and his hands in plastic bags so that blood wouldn't go everywhere and it wouldn't notify guards until like it was already too late. So he ended up committing suicide, and it really made Julissa's family really upset because in their eyes they didn't really get justice for what ended up happening to their child, which is incredibly fair. But it is just so sad overall, and I'm just really happy because it ended up changing a lot after that. Craigslist was made to change their ads from that point to where they could no longer do escorts or personal meetups anymore. Like, you now should not be able to do that. I don't know if you can. I don't know. I mean, whatever you do, you do. But like, oh my gosh. Oh, I just Googled it. He ended up putting on the wall, he put her name, Allison, and his nickname for her was Pocket. And he ended up writing Pocket. So yeah, he ended up, like, all of this happening ended up changing history overall. And matter of fact, as I'm looking this up right now, in 2016, it was estimated that over 100 murderers had used Craigslist personals to kill prostitutes and escorts, which is insane. So the Craigslist killer, because it was like so blown out, like it really caught the attention of people in the media, it became the analysis to shutting down that part of Craigslist personal for exotic services in 2011, before new legislation removed the personal section entirely in 2018. So it took some years, like it took a while, because I think his was done in 2008 or 2009. So it took a while for them to even do anything, and it took a while even more for the government do anything, which, like, nothing new, you know? But yeah, that is what everything is about the Craigslist killer. I've tried to cover just about everything I could in the last, like, 40 minutes. But, yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys like the spread. And hopefully I get to do this more often because this was kind of fun. I completely forgot how fun this was. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing this. And hopefully I didn't get too many things wrong. I don't think I did. But yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.